Lawmakers are calling on social media companies to address the increased threats to law enforcement after the FBI search at Mar-a-Lago almost 2 weeks ago. House Oversight Committee leaders sent letters to 8 tech firms, including Meta, Truth Social, and Gab, just to name a few, urging them to take immediate action to address the surge in violent online threats. Now, it's unclear if those companies have responded to those letters as of right now. It comes just as of yesterday, a Republican candidate seeking a House seat in Florida, Luis Miguel, had his Twitter account permanently suspended after he tweeted that all Floridians would have permission to shoot FBI, IRS, and ATF agents if he's elected. Miguel announced the news of his suspension on the website Florida Politics. NBC News has not verified the reasons his suspension happened. Joining me now to discuss all of this is former FBI counterintelligence agent Peter Strzok. Peter, welcome in. Thank you for your time today. We want to break all this down. First of all, what is your reaction to the federal judge saying that he's inclined to unseal portions of the Mar-a-Lago search affidavit?
Well, I think it's a little surprising in terms of this is not something that ordinarily happens. You know, of course, this is a search warrant, the first one of a former president of the United States. So I think there is arguably a compelling public interest in the case. But look, I think at the end of the day, that what the sensitive information in that affidavit, the things talking about the sources of information, all the things that the government believes to be true that they presented to the judge will be redacted. I think there may be some things where it talks about the crimes that are under consideration, the elements of those crimes. There may be things that are possible to be released, but at the end of the day, I think this is a judge being very cautious in a case that is extraordinarily prominent in the public debate, is likely to potentially be appealed. And so I think at the end of the day, he is going to rule on the side of the Department of Justice to keep that very sensitive information redacted and out of the public eye.
Okay, on that note of sensitive information potentially being released, a Trump lawyer suggested this week that the surveillance footage of the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago should be made public. A Department of Justice released a statement yesterday saying, quote, "We would hope that it would only be provided in a format that obscures the faces and identifying information of law enforcement personnel." Do you believe that Trump will release that video, and how dangerous could that be if he does?
Well, I think what the Department of Justice is asking is eminently reasonable. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we had a gunman attack the FBI Cincinnati field office. We've had other individuals charged by making threats to FBI agents. We have the judge who signed the search warrant having been identified and family members being doxxed and stalked online. So there is a clear pattern of behavior that goes specifically to Donald Trump and the very inflammatory language that he is making. So I think if there is video that exists, that it is absolutely possible with today's technology to blur out the faces or anonymize the people. If they wanted to release it, it would certainly be very possible to see what they were doing, but to do that in a responsible way. The issue, of course, is that former President Trump is rarely responsible in many of the things that he does. His team released their copy of the search warrant, which contained the name of the agent who was the affiant on the search warrant, which was immediately released into far right-wing media. So it's anybody's guess what they'll actually release, but I would hope at a minimum, the identities of those agents and investigators were obscured.
You'd hope that the president's team would understand that we're talking about lives here. Former Vice President Pence was also asked about the increased rhetoric against the FBI by the GOP on Friday while campaigning out with Chuck Grassley in Iowa. I want to play for you a little bit of what he said and get your reaction on the other side.
We should be standing with the men and women of law enforcement, and we should recognize we can hold the Attorney General and the Justice Department accountable. We can demand that they reveal why this search warrant was executed against the residence of a former president of the United States without demeaning the rank and file men and women of the FBI.
Simply put, Peter, will his party listen to him?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's nobody out there today who I think does not have the understanding that if Donald Trump gave that exact statement that Mike Pence just gave, that all of this would stop, that the temperature would decrease, that all this kind of violence that is emanating from all this hyper, heated rhetoric would slow down. We need the former president to do that. I have no expectation that he's going to do it. And as a result, I think we're going to continue to live and see a much greater level of threat going in and around all the law enforcement folks out there today.
Now, Greg Sargent of the Washington Post also wrote about the dangers of a GOP-led House and what it could mean for future investigations of Trump should they take control in November. Are you concerned about that? What's your temperature on that?
Well, I'm very concerned. I think that the folks in the Republican Congress are already talking about things they envision doing if and when they take control of either the House or Senate. There are a number of things, I think this idea that, well, we're going to defund the FBI is a little bit fanciful, but there's certainly things that they can do short of that, very targeted in terms of saying, we are not going to allow you to use funding for certain investigations or for certain categories of investigations. We can, they could seek to impeach Merrick Garland. They could certainly hold hearing after hearing after hearing. But I think what we should be prepared for is a level of destruction coming from a Republican Congress, unlike anything we've seen before, specifically targeting the January 6th investigations, but really going after anything seen as a threat to Donald Trump.